Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome to the Soul's Nurse. I am Maria Lopez, your guide on this path of inner transformation. And if you've ever felt called to journey with ayahuasca, the mother and grandmother of all plants, or whether you're curious, nervous, or just seeking more clarity, then today's video is for you. We're diving into what to know before you book your ayahuasca retreat, how to discern authentic shamans, what to look for in a retreat center, and the essential questions you need to ask before you even pack your bags. First and foremost, your shaman, facilitator, and guide is the heart and soul of your ayahuasca experience and your ayahuasca ceremony. These medicine keepers carry an extreme amount and potent knowledge and wisdom that is one carried down through generations, through elders, through teachers, and more specifically, through the plants, especially through dietas or diets that they diet with and receive the knowledge and the healing powers of the plants that they are in marriage and communion with. Let's talk lineage and training. One of the important questions to ask your guide, your facilitator, or your shaman is what lineage does my shaman come from? What lineage have you studied? Have you trained under and have you learned from? Not all lineages and traditions are the same. It's important to know that not all traditions, not all lineages work the same with ayahuasca. Not all shamans receive the same training, and not all traditions and tribes work with ayahuasca the same way. I, for example, apprentice and study under the Shipibo tradition, which is a tribe in Peru, and so do my teachers at AyaWaken Church here in Crum, Texas. My maestro, Mark Lorello Jr., Gaspar Rengifo, Chloe Lorello, they have studied under the Shipibo traditions from the Peruvian tribes. Shipibo traditions are known to be one of the very first and oldest tribes to work with the ayahuasca medicine. They were one of the first tribes to work with this beautiful medicine. And then, as ayahuasca made her way into other countries and into other traditions, the new adaptations were made to the medicine and the way that the medicine is served and is also worked through in ceremony. One of the special things about the Shipibo tradition is that Shipibo shamans work, heal, and disconnect energies, illnesses, conditions, and diseases through a process called a dieta or a diet, which is where they commune and essentially marry a specific kind of plant with their soul. And this is the way that they receive the healing powers, the healing abilities, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the intelligence of each of these plants that are then used as doctors and healing spirits in each of the ayahuasca ceremonies. The way that a dieta works, which is how it was explained to me by the plants themselves during my first dieta experience earlier this year, is that each plant grants different healing abilities to each maestro or maestra. So no two shamans have the same abilities. They can heal in the same way, but each gift and each ability is different from one shaman to the other. Also, these spirits of these plants have to test you and give you exams, each of the shamans and each of the maestros, and be able to gain their respect and their blessings in order for these plants to give to the maestros and the maestras the healing powers and the healing abilities. These are doctors and they have female and male spirits. For example, the tree of light, which is the Noyarao tree, has a male spirit, and the Bobinsana plant has a female spirit. These are two master plant teachers that I myself have had in Dieta, and each energy works different in different ways, different healing abilities, and is able to disconnect different energies within the body. And the only way to be able to truly, fully, authentically, safely, and effectively remove energies, conditions, illnesses is if the maestro or the maestra has obtained and successfully passed a dieta or a diet with the master teacher plants, which are used in ceremonies? So, this is a very specific question that you may want to ask your retreat centers and your shamans is, have you had dietas in your training? Through these dietas, the maestros and maestras cultivate deep relationships with the spirits of these plants. This is how they develop songs and ícaros or chants that they learn to navigate through the energetic and spiritual realms. And these ícaros is what helps the healing process, what helps navigate the medicine, what helps navigate the medicine space, the intensity of the medicine, the force of the medicine, protect the space of the ceremony is through the ícaros and the chants. So these are given and gifted by the plants. Sometimes the ícaros are learned and then recited in ceremony, and other times the ícaros are gifted at that specific moment in time in ceremony, and the maestro and maestra is not able to recall it the next day because it happens right at that moment. What are some red flags of some shamans that you may encounter? Is if a shaman casually mentions that they did a few ceremonies or they studied online or they attended a weekend workshop at a retreat center and are now serving the medicine of ayahuasca, this is probably a red flag for you to pause and ask further questions. Why is that a red flag and a warning? This is because learning the way of the medicine, the path of the medicine takes an extremely amount of a long time and rigorous training, apprenticing, and mainly learning from medicine herself at her pace, learning from elders, learning from teachers, and doing different dietas and different diets to be able to obtain the healing abilities of the plants. The wisdom and the knowledge is passed down to the maestra or the maestro matters. The deeper the connection to the lineage, to the maestros, to the plants that are dieted, to the medicine herself, the safer your journey will be. Another important question to consider asking your retreat center, your facilitator, your shaman, or your guide is, do you honor traditional protocols or have you adapted the practice of modern hybrid ceremony? What do I mean by this? For example, in Shipibo traditions and in the Shipibo traditional way of the ceremony, the ayahuasca is never mixed with any other plants except for the two plants that are combined to make the ayahuasca brew, which is chacruna and Banisteriopsis capi, which is ayahuasca. These are the only two that should ever be given in ceremony. Some other traditions mix other medicines, other plants, which could potentially make the journey and the ceremony itself a little bit more chaotic sometimes with the energies and could potentially be a little bit more dangerous if somebody has any specific medical conditions or any medications that they are taking that may interact with those other plants that could possibly be mixed if it's not just the two to make the brew. Another type of a modern hybrid situation that you could encounter is if shamans, facilitators, or guides introduce cannabis, whether that's smoking it during ceremony, before, after. Traditionally, the introduction of cannabis should not even happen, especially for a shaman. And the reason for this is because the cannabis plant is a very tricky plant and she wants a human experience. And so this plant overtakes the focus and the mind of the human being. And so it makes it a lot more difficult to really understand what is happening in ceremony, to be able to discern real visions versus illusions and versus visions cloaked by the spirit of cannabis. So in the Shipibo tradition, cannabis is not used whatsoever, not by the facilitators, the guides, the shamans, or even the participants. We ask participants to stop smoking cannabis at least a minimum 2 weeks before their ceremony. Other traditions and other lineages have adapted a sort of modern hybrid to this where you may see shamans smoking cannabis. That's not something that I follow or practice, but it is important to know in case this is something that you encounter. Also, may be a good opportunity to pause, reflect, and maybe ask why they are using cannabis in the ceremonies. The reason I have a reservation for this is just this is just one of the ways that I was taught, but also as a nurse, I think about would I want a neurosurgeon operating on my brain under the influence? That being said, would I want this neurosurgeon to be under the influence of alcohol or weed while they are working on me physically? I probably wouldn't want that. So it's the same thing when it comes to an ayahuasca ceremony, right? We are going to an actual hospital in the spirit realm where surgeries and spiritual surgeries are happening. And so you would want your shaman, your facilitator, or your guide who's guiding you through this experience and through the spiritual surgery to be as focused, as concentrated, and as pure as possible to be able to, one, perform the procedure safely and to also understand what is happening and to be able to explain to you at the end of your ceremony what kind of work was done on you. Another warning to consider and a red flag is if your shamans or your retreat centers are charging an exorbitant amount of fees for a retreat and not really being able to answer these kinds of questions for you with humility, with knowledge, and most importantly, to be able to make you feel safe and to be patient enough to answer all of your questions. In short, your shaman is not just a facilitator of the medicine. They are medicine keepers and guardians of sacred plant teachings and sacred knowledge. And choosing wisely is the first step to a transformative and protective journey. How to know that you are sitting in medicine with a properly trained guide or shaman. As I mentioned before, one of the most important questions that you could ask is what lineage are you trained under? Who did you apprentice under? What dietas do you have under your belt? Do you continue extensive training over time? Because let's be honest, we are always learning and we're students of life. Do you visit the spaces and tribes that you work with, that you learn from, whether that is Mexico or Peru, Colombia, Brazil? Do they go and train and continue their training and their learning, one from the jungle herself, but from the elders and the plants that are found in these magical places of the jungle? And if you're feeling extra brave and curious about your journey, maybe ask, what dietas do you have? I'm coming into ceremony because there is a specific condition or a specific trauma that I would like to heal. Do any of the dietas that you have, are they able to assist me with this? Are you able to help me, my mind, my body, and my spirit? Help me with this condition that I'm coming to ceremony with. And for the most part, if they have a pretty good amount of dietas under their belt, then those doctors that come in, which is the spirits of the plants, should be able to assist you, to help you through the channel and the vessel of your maestra or your maestro. Again, if your retreat center can't tell you anything about their shaman specific dietas, or if they emphasize on an instant certification or a weekend workshop or even a month's workshop, then it might be a good idea to step back, take your time, pause, continue to ask questions. Ultimately, you want to feel a vibrational pull to the retreat center, to the shaman or guide, because that is your intuition letting you know that, yes, this is a safe place for me to go through this journey with, or maybe it's a good idea to pause and continue to seek questions, maybe continue to visit other centers and learn more before I step into an enormous amount of transformation that once your eyes are open to the world of ayahuasca, it's pretty hard to close them back up. It's also a good idea to look for reviews, to look for testimonials of past participants. A great website to look through is safeceremonies.com. Those retreat centers are mostly based in the US. Also, Ayahuasca USA Retreats is a Facebook group that you can follow. Those are for centers here in the US. But if you're going out of the country, look for people who know about the medicine and they would be able to point you in the right direction for retreat centers outside of the United States. And another important question to ask your retreat center and your shaman is what is the ratio of participants to the guides or the facilitators or the shamans? In a large group, which technically is over 20, 25 and up, or over 20 participants, you might not receive individualized attention in ceremony, making it a little bit more difficult for the shaman and the guides to be able to scan you completely throughout your journey, meaning scanning your physical, mental, and spiritual body for any conditions and any areas that need to have more attention to. So we've seen, retreat centers that take up to 30, 50 people. And sometimes it's a little bit harder to be able to assist those unless they have helpers. Sometimes they have had helpers, which helps, but sometimes some retreat centers don't. So that's another question. Like if you have a large group, do you have helpers assisting you? Usually smaller groups, more intimate groups, anywhere between 8 to 15 people, you might be able to have a little bit more personalized care. Not to say that those retreat centers that have more than 20 people are not able to fully help you. It just makes it a little bit harder. So ultimately, some things to know before you book your retreat is lack of transparency, lack of training, or too quick training, exorbitant amount of fees without being able to answer all of these questions and provide you with this safe space for you to feel empowered to attend your ceremony and ultimately trust your gut. See what your intuition tells you about the shaman, the center, do your homework, seek around people who have sat with the medicine before, whether as a participant, as a guardian, as a facilitator, and look around. This is a space that when you enter, you want to make sure that one, you're in the safest space possible, but two, that you are being taken care of wholeheartedly. And if you are in the DFW area or Texas or wouldn't mind traveling to Texas, then I highly recommend that you seek out AyaWaken Church in Crum, Texas, and visit them, visit their website, chat with the maestros, which are my personal maestros, Mark Lorello Jr., Chloe Lorello, and also Gaspar and Hifo. These are my maestros that I'm apprenticing under, and this is where I personally go do my own healing work with Mother Ayahuasca. I'll leave their information below. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share with anyone you know who's curious about ayahuasca. Let me know in the comments what questions are you still holding on to that you would like for me to answer maybe in another video. And if you're ready for more plant medicine guidance, then be sure to subscribe, leave a comment on a question or something that you would love to learn, and I'll respond in a video.